and welcome back for part 3 of our Learn to Play Frostpunk 2 series. And last time we were here, we had recently unlocked the world map by building this logistics district, and that gave us the ability to scroll out and kind of get to this map. And we'll go into that in a second because that is a brand new part of the game that we have not been introduced to through any part of the game so far. So even in the prologue, it wasn't introduced. We are in the middle of some things going on right now. You know, we see that we're running out of coal here. We have this going up, so that should help our materials. And we built out our housing, but you could see that we only have a +6. So with that being said, if we only have a +6 and we have, you know, an increase in people because our population, you know, grows, or we have people come to our place because of the world map. Another thing to check in when you first get into the game is how is tension? Well, tension right now is absent, but you can see that there is a little bit of tension just from the squalor, but it's not going to be growing much. And so that should tell you, okay, well, if there's tension from squalor, let's check out our squalor. And you should also be looking at all of these as well, these 4 things plus this too. I mean, obviously this tells us, you know, how cold it is, but we see that there's no hunger, there's no disease, but it is increased a little bit because there's an increase in squalor. And we can see here what's causing the squalor. Well, it's minor right now, but it's growing. And so that's not a good thing because we don't want it to grow. And it's caused by the material scarcity, which is this. And we're going to fix that with this. It's also because of the blasting coal mine. And that's also going to be resolved once we delete this district, and we're going to delete it because it's about to run out. The material part is going to kind of resolve itself. And then same thing here. Crime is absent, but it's stable because we have squad guards, but there is a goods scarcity, and we can't really address that right now because we do have other things that are more pressing. With that being said, let's go ahead and see what should we be handling first. What is, well, I guess I'll pause here and kind of let you think. What would you do right now? Like what do you think is the most pressing item that we need to address? What's going on? What should we be looking at? If you got your answer locked in, let's go ahead. In my opinion, we can also see that coal is -70, and we already know that this is going to be running out. So if we can't heat our people, well, that's going to be a very big problem. So in my opinion, the coal, the housing, and the food are going to be a big problem, especially if we get more people. So this needs to be addressed. This is probably going to go away because the output's going to be 150. So we're going to, you know, the delta between 150 and 85, it's obviously going to be positive at that point. So we don't have to worry about that too much. So that should solve this. So let's go ahead and start frost breaking to these other coal areas because we already know that we're going to need to access these, right? So let's go ahead and do that. And then let's also do a little bit over here. There we go. Oops. Man, I can't click that. There we go. Boom. All right, so we got that going. That took out a good amount of our heat stamps. So let's go ahead and unpause it and let that go for a bit because we want to have this fixed, which it's going to do pretty shortly. We can also see that this is popping up here. So that's another thing we can address. So boom, it did address our stockpile issue. But the interesting part is that, you know, the 150 minus 85 didn't really math out. Yeah, so the 50. So that's where it got eaten up. So interestingly enough, in order to make materials, you have to use material. The total output is 150, but the total demand is 50. So in reality, it looks like we're only getting 100 total, which makes sense. You know, the 100 minus 85 is 15. So keep that in mind when you build these, that it's not going to be exactly what you think it is because there's always like these little hidden costs that people don't really see. So let's also take a look over here because it looks like there is a law that wants to be voted on. So right now they are proposing food additives. The city will approve chemical additives with tested and tolerable risk levels. Food production efficiency is increased, but disease is marginally increased, and this is a small step towards progress. Right now, the law is supported, meaning that if you voted on this, this is likely going to pass. And it's likely going to pass because so many people want this. With that being said, is it something we want? Not, you know, it's not bad, but the disease part is kind of where I'm a bit nervous. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to let this play out. I'm not going to actually pull the vote right now because I want to first research the hospitals first, because the hospital is what's going to prevent disease. So with that being said, I don't really want to introduce any disease until I research this. So that's probably gonna be our next stop here after all due maintenance is done, because it makes the most sense, because you want to be able to have something that handles disease. So with that being said, let's go ahead and continue to see where we're at with things. So we're still looking good here. We're still looking good. We're still looking good. From here, once this is done, then we're gonna probably want to spend some stuff building this. But one thing to note right now, we're gonna run out of prefabs here very soon. So while this is still up and running and we have a little bit of reserve, and it's only gonna get worse because this cold season is coming up. So it's only going to increase. This is gonna increase or this is gonna decrease, but basically increase the difficulty. So what we want to do is, once we have enough supplies, we want to build an extraction district in order to go and take these prefabs, because we are getting pretty dangerously low on prefabs. We could, another option to do is that we could pass a law that would allow prefabs to be come in at a kind of like a low pace. Yeah, so I think it's this one, community service, service exemption. Right now we have heat stamp increase. So that's one thing. I honestly prefer heat stamps over the prefab. We can also do this one too. You could see warm housing districts generate heat stamps. That's going to be really good too, because right now we are keeping people heated. So there are some rules that we can implement, or some texts that we could do in order to increase prefabs. But for now, the easiest solution is to build an extraction district. So we're going to do that. Let's go ahead, and now that we have this kind of squared away, or this will be squared away here pretty soon, but let's go ahead and take a look at the world map, because this is kind of what we've been thinking about, the new thing on the game that we're kind of approaching. And so you'll see this, you can scroll out. I think you can also press this or this right here. So either way, this is how you'd access it. So you have these things, and you can see these different, dotted lines, these delineated sectors, and some of them have these flashing icons, whereas this has this do not enter sign. And there's a reason for that. So if you click on it, it says, well, we just simply don't have the Frostline teams for it. And you can see your Frostline teams are up here. We only have 15. This requires 20. But not only that, the threat level is dangerous. Many scouts are going to be injured and likely die. So we don't want to send anyone here. Even if we do find some good things, we want to lower the threat level. And to do that, we can build any scout headquarters or pass the Pathfinder scout law to decrease the threat level. If you don't want to lean into the Frostlanders way of doing things, then just building a scout headquarters is probably the easier way. It still leans towards their way, but it's, not as serious as a law. So that's one way to do it. Same thing here. We can't do it because we just don't have the Frostland teams for it. So we can go here. We can also go here. So what is the difference between the two? Well, we see the time to chart is 15 weeks, 6 days, requires 10. Possible findings is Frostland dwellers, and the threat level is safe. Cool. Well, if we go here, it takes 15 weeks, 5 days. So not really too much difference. We're talking 1 day, same amount of people, also threat level safe. But look at these things that we could find. We can find prefabs, cores, and people. So there's a lot to it here compared to this one, which only has people. And you can get a little summary of what's in this area. Over 30 years ago, blah blah, landed here and built the region's generators, and there's just not much here. It's just a frozen bay. Whereas this one, kind of actually, it looks like they use the same picture. But this area still has an old coal mine though, and there might be some leftover coal. So that that kind of hints to you here, hey, there might be more fuel here. So that's an interesting thought. So maybe we should go here. So let's go ahead and do that. So we click that, and once it unpauses, you'll see this thing move over here. It's not real time. This just shows where we're going. But you'll see that once we unpause it, that there's going to be this timer up here. So let's actually go ahead and do that real quick. So you can see it moves, but now, it's only 1%, where it looks like it should be already, quarter of the way because they're almost there. But now it's only 2%. So you get what I'm saying? So, but now if we click here, we don't have the Frostland teams for it because we only have 5 people. And it looks like we got a little pop-up, so we'll go ahead and take a look at that. So we can't do anything here. We could build more logistics districts to get more Frostland teams eventually. But right now, we only need 1 because we just want to focus on other things right now because they're a bit more pressing. So with that being said, there's also this one thing right here, this kind of diamond question mark thing. What is this? Let's go ahead and click on it. Makeshift shelters. Looks like people are building temporary shelters around a small hot spring. Pretty smart. You know, they're able to stay warm and have some water. So we have to use 5 Frostline teams. They don't disappear. This is just the cost to bring them back. And then you get 2,665 new Londoners. That is a good amount of people. That's going to be people that can work, can research, can, perform jobs, all that. And some of them aren't working people. So just keep that in mind before we click yes, because this all sounds great, right? Like, oh yeah, like let's get more people because we're really lacking in labor, right? Yes, we are. But the big problem here is that if we bring in people and we don't have the necessary infrastructure to take them on, I mean, look, we're already in single digits for these things. So before we do that, we have to address the housing and the food. And this is, again, this is really just to kind of show you and like slow things down for a second, because you don't want to click, oh yeah, let's bring them in. And then it's just a cascading failure of like, oh man, we don't have the housing, people are dying, and then people are dying and they're also starving because there's not enough food anymore, because now we have a deficit of food. And then it just keeps going and going, and then people are getting upset because you're letting people die, and then you can't generate, the heat stamps to cover this, or you don't have enough prefabs to build the new housing districts, and it just gets worse and worse. You know what I mean? So that's how easy it is to lose in this game. So that's why I'm saying just take a second to look at the situation and think, okay, can we reasonably take in this many people? And, this might not seem like a lot. Let's go ahead and test this. 2,665. How much housing is that reasonably going to take? Would you think that, every 100 is one shelter? It's to me, it's a great conversion, but I'll let you know right now, that's not how it works. I don't know why that's not how it works, because you can even see right here, we have almost 9,200 people. We're using 124. So there's the conversion factor is a bit more. It's almost like 0.25 if I had to kind of give a rough guesstimate. So it's not a 1-for-1. So if we built a housing district which only holds 20, we're probably going to have to build 2 housing districts in order to comfortably take these people on. And then same thing here with the food. So we have 165 food consumption, and that changes up and down depending on the time, or not the time, the temperature, because lower temperatures decreases food efficiency. And you can fix that by increasing the heat here, but it becomes harder to heat once, temperature is lower, and then that pulls on your coal stockpiles. So you could see like how things are could get worse really quick, and it's really easy for things to just go out of hand very quickly. So you have to just take your time, analyze the situation, and you're going to come out on top. It's going to be fun. We'll get through it together. So before we do that, let's go ahead and see what this is about. So this looks like it's just a small little like tidbit, like, hey, someone's, mentioning the lack of law regulating childhood is causing tension to rise through the city. So now that this has been brought up, we need to pass a law regulating childhood. And it is likely going to add to the tension. So it's not here right now because we probably have it paused, but it will eventually add to it because we don't have that. So what we could do is, in order to appease them, is that, childhood. Well, which one do we prefer, right? Well, I'll tell you right now, even though this one can be better because, research speed, is really good. This is also going to decrease your heat stamps, and that's something I try to avoid. This one, while the role-playing aspect is kind of like, oh man, that's a bit rough, it comes with like hidden consequences where it's like, research this one, and then people get upset, like kids are running around in the workplace, and kids should be at home, or I forgot like what they say, but like they say something along those lines, and it causes people to get upset. So just know that the consequences or impacts aren't always explicitly stated. Like this is kind of just like the game mechanics behind it, whereas like, choosing this one, oh, there's no downfall to this one. Well, turns out there is. It's just that you don't know what it is until it happens. So we can research this one, but the thing is that we have 70 people hesitant, but 0 are against. So this comes a time where it's like, okay, do we want to risk having people not vote for this? If people went half and half, it's going to pass because 35 people are likely going to vote for it, but no one's going to vote against it. usually the hesitant is split, you know, half and half, 35 for, 35 against. That's usually what I've seen. It can change depending on how people view you. So just something to keep in mind. So right now we are held in a respectable state. We're almost to the higher one. They're more likely to lean towards it. We're going to go ahead and let this play out, but that is something that we'll eventually want to bring up. So, but actually to kind of get things going, let's go ahead and vote for it now, because we already know this one's going to pass. And so let's just not dilly-dally anymore. So let's just go ahead and let chemical additives go through. And I know that we haven't researched hospitals, but it's not going to be a big deal yet. It's marginally going to increase it. So we're about halfway through this one. So in 4 weeks, we could research the hospitals, but at least this will get us started on the cooldown for the childhood law, because that is going to be a pretty pressing thing. So let's go ahead and unpause it. So we can see that our food went up slightly, but we're eventually going to have chemical additives and squalor. It looks like our disease is growing a bit, right? So that's kind of what we had mentioned earlier. We knew that was going to happen. But, you know, this should be going away here pretty soon, especially with squalor going away once we completely delete this one. So quick pause real quick. Let's go ahead and build an extraction district right here, right? Because we need to do this because we're going to be running out of prefab soon. So let's go ahead and address that and make sure that we have a steady state of prefabs coming in. And then eventually our next one is likely going to be 2 of these coal, or maybe 1. We'll see. Depends on how much we have, but I think because we have this building here, we're likely going to need 2 in order to kind of keep up with the coal requirements, especially with this coal decrease. And then after that, we'll likely have to build 2 housing districts plus a food district in order to accommodate the new people that would come in. And, you know, this colder season is only going to last for a few weeks, so it's not going to be the worst thing in the world. So not too worried about it, but, you know, it is something to be aware of. You know, it's coming our way. So let's go ahead and increase this a bit because, oh, looks like crime is growing. No common rules. So we could see that because we have no common rules, this is increasing crime. So that is not a good thing. All right, so let's go ahead and research a hospital. So here's another thing that we want to come across is, all right, so now we have these choices. We have a recovery hospital and a regular hospital. And so what's the difference? Well, the biggest difference is that this is going to increase population growth and decrease disease slightly, whereas this just decreases disease slightly with no negative. The costs are the same, 200, 150, 200, 150. The big difference here, though, is that the Faith Keepers approve this, while these neutral ones are supporting this one. And usually you kind of want to lean towards, you know, if you're trying to play middle of the road, you want to lean towards these selections because it won't really upset anyone, whereas this one might upset, you know, the other factions or cause tension. So that's something to be aware of. In my opinion, I do think that this one is a really good one because of the population growth increase. I like that. So I think I'm going to choose this one because it's going to allow us to have a higher population, which is always good. So let's go ahead and research that one. All right, so we got that going. So it looks like, man, yeah, we don't have much workforce, right? We have 44. It's not a lot. It's not a lot at all. So that pretty much means once this is done, we can only probably build 1 of these, unfortunately. So once we have that, we're going to have to hold on to our coal just a bit. There we go. So now that's done. Let's go ahead and delete this. We're going to get a little bit of prefabs back and some heat stamps, which is going to be enough for us to build a new extraction district. So once we get, it looks like we just need another tick of heat stamps. Let's go ahead and pause it. Extraction district. And then let's build boom, 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 boom. There we go. Because look at that negative now. That's a massive negative. That's obviously really bad. So we want to fix that by building not 1 but 2, because if we look at this, the output's going to be 48. So it's not a lot, right? It's like compared to this one, this was 120. So I mean 48 compared to negative 450, a lot, right? So one thing that we could do is lower the heat. Right, we could lower the heat in order to stop how much coal is, you know, coming or required. When one door closes, the first crack. So this is factions, trying to implement their beliefs onto the general populace. So if you read this, it, basically says the Faith Keepers have been doing their thing where they go to each door and they want to have a symbol of the captain's presence and everything. One select group of Frostlanders refuses to leave the doors open. We aren't getting in the way. We just don't want strangers barging into our homes. The Faith Keepers are arguing, well, we're all under one flock under his wing. How can we be united if one of us steps away? What should we do? This is funny because they invent this. This is the first crack. Because this is like one of the first things where it's like you have to address like how you want to approach the game with the factions. Because right now you can support all doors open, and this subgroup of Frostlanders will oppose this decision. But the relationships will improve with New Landers and Faith Keepers. Stop the possession. This is an invasion of privacy and a waste of time. This subgroup of Frostlanders will support this decision. This will slightly worsen relations with New Landers and Faith Keepers. Do not interfere. We have more pressing matters to deal with. Relationships will marginally worsen with all communities. Typically, when you do the middle of the road man approach when it comes to faction decisions, it's usually not good. And when I say faction decisions, I mean stuff like this, like scenario based, not law and tech, more so this stuff. And if you stay neutral, it usually backfires from what I've noticed. Like if I say, hey, we're not going to worry about this. On paper, it says you're going to have marginally worse in relationships with all communities. But I know that it's going to come back and say, oh, well, we can't depend on the steward and the captain because they weren't there for us when people were coming into our homes and, barging in. Or, they might say, oh, well, they weren't there when we were trying to bring everyone under his guidance. So how can we depend on him? They will use that against you, and it can be very frustrating. So it's almost like this diplomatic game almost. In my opinion, I recommend choosing one of these. So which one should you choose? Well, really just one way you can look, there's two ways of looking at it, in my opinion. One is, do you want to improve relations with a certain faction? Or are you trying to get on the good side of a certain faction? Well, then choose that one. The other way of looking at this is, in my experience, when it says this subgroup of Frostlanders will oppose this decision, that means this subgroup of Frostlanders is forever going to hold this against you. Whereas you can improve a relationship or, change a relationship with these people easily. It's very easy to influence relations, but if a group is forever going to remember a decision, that's a bigger issue than improving relationships. So my opinion, I find that this one is going to be better because this subgroup of Frostlanders will support this decision. Now, it might come back that the Faith Keepers are going to be like, oh, well, we're going to hold that against you. But right now, it doesn't say that's going to happen. It might come back to us later, and, that could be the case. But I know when it comes down to like later in the game, it can come up and make things worse. So, relations slightly worsen with these people, but it's easy to fix this. Whereas this is basically like a permanent record. They're forever going to remember that decision. So I'm going to choose this one. Okay, so now that we got rid of that district, we did get a good amount of heat stamps and some prefabs back, but we could see that we've run into a problem. And our problem right now is the workforce. So there is one thing that we could do right now that would have an immediate effect. That is to bring these people in. But we discussed before that we need to expand our housing. Well, luckily enough, we do have enough people to make another housing district. So let us go ahead and do exactly that. Boom. There we go. So we're going to let that ride out. Another thing that we could do is that we could also expand the district to increase its output and also to provide another building slot. But for now, we're just going to build this because it might be enough, but we'll see. We'll have to take a quick look to see where it lands. I think 26 plus should be enough, but you never know. So might be best that we expand one of these. Well, since we're talking about it, let's just go ahead and expand one of these districts now to kind of see like what we're talking about when we say expand. So let's go ahead and expand this one. And let's go ahead and actually, can we expand this one over here? Let's see. Yes, we can. Nice. Okay. So let's go ahead and do this and go ahead and build that. And we'll see, the total output's going to change. And we could already see we hit that that colder, or it's going to get colder here pretty soon. So we're ready to vote on the next law. So all due maintenance, material demand is significantly decreased. This is really good. So the interesting thing here is that 75 are hesitant. So what we could do is that we can guarantee this, because this is a really good one to have. I think this is fantastic. So let's see what they have to negotiate. If there's one that we think that we can easily do, let's go for it. Otherwise, I don't think it's necessary. So these ones I don't really feel like doing, because trying to pass a law usually requires you to promise another thing to another faction, and it's just a vicious cycle. Researching isn't too bad, but right now research isn't my top priority. I don't need an advanced blasting coal mine. It's not the worst thing in the world to do, but I'd rather focus on other things. But worst comes to worst, this is probably the best one to choose. So like researching something is pretty easy. And then a law, same thing. You know, we don't really want to enact a law, so let's go ahead and see what the Frostlanders want. Use community action, condemn the Faith Keepers. So this one, the way you look at it, it can kind of be considered like a freebie. So it's not the worst thing in the world to have. The more you do it, the higher their fervor increases, and the fervor is like them like wanting to protest or wanting to fight or sabotage things. So you want to keep fervor low. Something like this, you can condemn them, and then you can, you know, do something else to, you know, make them easier or like more easygoing. Researching a dust coal mine, probably not the worst thing in the world either. And then forged additives, you know, that one's not too bad, but it's also a law. So if I had to go for one, let's see, dust coal mine versus advanced blasting coal mine. I think the dust coal mine is going to be easier to research. I might be wrong on that, but let's see. Advanced coal mines, yeah. So here is advanced coal mine shaft. So here's a coal mine here. So they just want us to research this one, which, you know, 50 heat stamps versus 100. You know, the dust coal mine is probably going to be easier to do here. So it's actually not a bad thing. It takes us, you know, it takes 10 weeks for us to research it. So it might not be the best thing in the world because it takes away our research, but it is basically going to guarantee that we pass this one. And we do want to pass this one. Disease is slightly increased if we build this, but we're just researching it. We're not actually building it. It just says research. So I think this is a fantastic one. And now the law supported. Accept, vote, all due maintenance. That's going to drop our materials requirement like tremendously. It's going to be awesome. So you can see, wow, look how much we have now. So we're producing 127. So that's a good amount. So we can see here that this has a workforce that's only 40%. So that's not the best thing in the world, right? So what we can do is we can actually bump this up. What we can also do is we can drop this to here and then use this moment to actually build another heating, or not another heating, another housing district, because we need only 200 workforce. And that's another trick too that you can do if you need people, is to lower the workforce of something that's not exactly critical right now. So like something like this, we could lower this one, see how it's changing it. And so we could probably drop it to here. Let's drop it to there, because this, you know, that's exactly what we need. And then we could bump this up because we need this more than the other stuff, right? Because, well, look at that. That's pretty darn low. We need to wait for 15 more prefabs, and so this is slowly going to churn out. It's going to give us 15 right now. Awesome. So now we can build another housing district. 1, 2, 3. There we go. All right, and so once that's built, I think I would feel pretty safe on bringing in those people. Just something to note, though, is that it is going to get colder here pretty soon, so we do need those people sooner than later because how little coal we're pulling in right now. So just something to be aware of. But that's the whole point of this thing, is that we're planning ahead and making sure that we're not just randomly doing things and randomly pulling people in when we can't afford to do so. It's also going to negatively affect our food, too. So something we want to look at is perhaps building another food district, but you can see that our prefabs and other things are not up to par right now. But in the meantime, we could probably, you know, frost break some areas to help kind of not necessarily speed things up, but just get things going while we wait around. All right, so this is almost done. So we saved up enough heat stamps exactly for the, oh, looks like our place is scouted. So let's go ahead and get this done first, and then we'll check out that. All right, so we have that. Now let's go to the coal mines and the dust coal mine, because we need to do this one in order to complete the promise. So let's go ahead and do that. And you saw the little icon that showed like the little handshake. Hey, this is a promise that you promised us. All right, so now that's done. So let's go ahead and check out. Oh, dang. So it basically like showed the map of, you know, where we scouted, and now we can kind of see what these are. So until we click on them, we won't know. But you can see we also discovered more things around the area as well. But as you can see, they kind of have that same do not enter sign, likely because we don't have the Frostline teams for it, but it's also a deadly threat. You know, it's not just dangerous. This one's deadly. So many scouts will die. So without further ado, let's go ahead and click on this. Old observatory. You can kind of read these things to kind of see what they're about. Bring the agreeable ones out of the cold, convince them all to come. You'll have these scenarios where it's like you have two options, and usually one of them's grayed out, not possible because, you know, and it tells you why. We need a new and stable source of heat in New London to be convincing to all of them. And typically, if you wait and are able to convince all of them rather than some of them, it's, you know, it's obviously better because you get more people. You know, you only get 2,283. Here you get 3,523. My opinion, I would wait for this till we find the new stable source of heat in New London. So I'm going to leave this for now. Over here, jettison secondary engine of a dreadnought. So we could dismantle the wreck and get 2 cores. Fissions in the ice suggest the dreadnought traveled to the frozen bay a long time ago. So, you know, nothing looks too bad here. We can get the cores, and it only takes 5 Frostline teams. But let's hold off on that just for a second, because we're more than likely going to want to pull these people and then also scout this area. So we need those Frostline teams right now because we don't have that other district or the logistics district built. And lastly, abandoned coal mine. So what we could do here is, using the mine will take more Frostline teams, but we could take these for prefabs. We can keep the free prefabs, and using the mine will take fewer Frostline teams. It's like a resource pile similar to like when you're on this map, it's like one of these resource piles, but it's on the world map this time. And you basically just have a constant pull of resources from it. So do you want to take the prefabs, but using the mine will take more Frostline teams, or do you want to keep the free prefabs, but using it will take fewer Frostline teams? Future miners will surely appreciate the maintained trail. In my opinion, I mean, 300 prefabs is a lot. I mean, you can see we're only getting 15 a week. That's not a lot. We could use this, you know, but using the mine's going to take more Frostline teams, or we can keep the prefabs for a maintained trail. So right now, I do think that this is probably going to be the better one, given how few Frostline teams we have. But I could also understand that, you know, taking this is going to be really good too. So it's going to be very situation dependent. You know, if you're really needing this, go for this. But if you can, you know, this is going to be the better option as time goes on. So over here, we want to probably check this one out because we can't really scout anywhere else. But this is going to take 10, so let's go ahead and do that. And then we have these makeshift shelters. Let's take a quick check on where we're at with building this. Okay, so it's almost done. You know what I mean? It's pretty much there. Let's go ahead and make sure that it is completely done. But as you can see, we're about to get colder. It's about to go to -40, and this is going to drop tremendously, actually, now that I think about it. So let's go ahead and pull these people, because yeah, we need more workforce. It's going to become very apparent very quickly here. And, you know, we're only going to be able to last for another week. So what does that tell me? Well, man, oh man, we're kind of in a tough position. You know, the unfortunate part is that we are in a tough position. So I think what we can do is that we can lower the heat in all the districts by 1, and that will help. We're about to get cold here pretty quickly. All right, so we have a ton of people now, but man, we don't have any prefabs. So how do we fix that? Well, the only way we can fix prefabs is through laws or dismantling old buildings. So right now, we're kind of at a stuck point, because right now everything is pretty darn chilly. You can see, so we can heat these up, but it's going to eat away at our reserves that much quicker. But you can see, you know, we timed that pretty well, but our food is looking pretty bad right now. So you're in this position. So what should you do? What do you think is the highest priority right now? If you had to guess, what do you think is, what should we be focusing on? And if your answer is coal, then you are correct. Because right now, if we're basically gonna run out of coal in about 2 weeks. And so the nice thing about coal, or the nice thing about these buildings, is that they don't take too many prefabs. But what they do provide is a good amount of coal. They provide 210. We're at a negative 305. That's a lot. We have the prefabs, we just don't have the heat stamps. So let's go ahead and let this run for a second. So we have a little pop-up, you know, they're saying, you know, no common rules, crime is slightly increased. And so what we could do is, you know, if we don't pass a law, this is going to worsen our relations with all of the communities, but we can provide, or we can promise, hey, we're going to provide some sort of common law for children. So let's go ahead and do that. Coal's only going to last for about 6 more days. So what we could do is that we can overdrive. And funny enough, overdrive actually doesn't increase the amount of coal used. So what we could do is lower this even more and then overdrive it to help with the heating problem. And so, yeah, you know, things are pretty low, but at least we're not going to lose the generator. But overdrive pretty much increases the temperature level in all districts, but increases the generator's wear. If wear reaches 100, the generator will malfunction and cause casualties. So you want to use this sparingly, but in this case, we're using it to bridge the gap that we have right now. And also, we could use it until the warmer season happens, which is going to help us out tremendously. All right, so now we have enough. Let's go and put in this blasting coal mine. And that should also help with our coal issue. But it still doesn't solve the problem that we do need 150 prefabs, and we are kind of lacking in that right now. So keep the warmth. This will open heat management. We'll deal with it later. So right now they're just saying they're cold, and it's true. It is pretty cold. So, but we're hoping with this new, you know, blasting mine that, you know, with more coal, we're able to increase the heat just a bit more for these people. All right, so now let's go ahead and propose a law because we have that issue with the childhood. So which one do you think is better? In my opinion, right now, this one's probably gonna be better. It's always nice to have higher research speed, but I just don't like the heat stamp increase or decrease. So let's go ahead and do this one. There's a lot of people that are for, some people are hesitant against it. I can't see why this would fail. You know, even if it's divided in half, you know, 36-36, you know, it's gonna pass. So I don't see a reason to negotiate, but let's double check just to be safe. It looks like the only person we could really go for is this one. So heat homes on New Londoners, research an actuated heat dispatcher, and enact a mass produced law. So let's go ahead and do that one. I think this one's pretty easy because you actually do want to get this one. So let's go ahead and accept that and then vote for it to make sure it passes. There we go. So crime should be decreasing now, just because we passed that law, and that should make people more happy. You can see disease is growing. Crime is minor, but it's stable. So now that we had this built, we have a surplus of 230. So let's see if we can increase the heating just a bit. So doing that's gonna increase it a bit too much. You see that? So we're gonna have to selectively increase just the housing districts because we want to focus on the housing for now. You know, the other stuff can come later, but the housing is what's most important. There we go. We have a council vote. Will anything actually change? For years, the Faith Keepers have just had their way. Those who disagree with Faith Keeper views gather and discuss how they can change the city. So you can kind of see that people are starting to question, you know, what's going on with the city. The Evolvers, a new voice. So we just saw that a new faction just formed. So now we have 4 factions instead of 3. So now we have to worry about more things. So are these people how are these people viewing our decisions? You can view how they look at things by clicking this little button right here. And this tells them like what they look for right here. They despise, wasteful excess. They perceive death and bodily harm as natural and useful part of the evolutionary process. They direct all funds given to them towards prototyping new ideas. And so this is also what they're looking for. So this is this gives you an idea as to like what these people want, hearth shares. They invite all to share the warmth under their hearths. They turn their wrath against the city when it espouses heresy. When criminal wrongdoing is rampant, they eagerly answer to the steward's call to right it. So it's mainly these two that you have to worry about. You can see even if we're selecting these two, this is these are the 2 factions they have to worry about. The New Londoners and the Frostlanders are kind of like the neutral factions. So but now we have evolved into 2 extreme leaning factions is probably the best way to put it. But with the development of the 4th faction and us scouting this area, I do think that's a good place to stop. We did cover a lot today. We checked out the world map. We got a new faction. We analyzed and assessed how we're going to handle new and incoming populations, especially when, our shelter and our food are low, and the coal is also low too. So these are also things that we have to keep in mind when we're expanding our city and taking in new people. So with that being said, I appreciate you watching, and as always, I hope this helped you. And if you like this video, go ahead and give it a like. If you want to see more content like this, go ahead and hit subscribe so that way you don't miss the next part in the series. And as always, I hope you guys have a good one. I'll see you guys next time.